Hi everyone, this is Mallory Flowers on behalf of Jennifer Charleston Associates, and we are coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Welcome to our Webinar Wednesday series, and thank you for joining us. Our webinars are held every Wednesday in 2018 at 12 p.m. and 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and our speakers range from accountants to attorneys and other industry professionals. The full schedule for the rest of the year is on our website underneath the webinar tab. In the interest of time, we do not take questions. Our speaker's contact info is posted on the last slide, so if you have any questions, please contact the speaker directly. The recordings are on our website underneath the Archived Webinar tab, as well as on our YouTube channel. And this is just a quick word about us. Jennifer Charleston Associates is based in downtown Washington, D.C., and we help both product and service companies with federal contracting. Our clients are domestic and foreign, defense contractors, and civilian. Our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles, including the GSA schedule. We can also help you with proposal writing and post-award contract administration. More information about our services and upcoming events can be found on our website. And this is our upcoming event that's going to be on Monday, October 22nd. You can get tickets on the link below, and you can also sponsor the event. And you can find more information on the link on this slide. So we're going to go ahead and dig into today's presentation, which is proposal processes that win time and again. And Christy Hollywood is our speaker today. You can learn more about her background on this slide. Thank you, Christy, for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thanks, Mallory. I appreciate it. So as you can tell from the slide, I've been working in federal contracting for a very long time. I've worked with everything from small and large firms, as well as nonprofits across all agencies in the civilian federal space, and done a little bit in the defense sector as well. Mostly focusing on capture and proposal support and operational processes. So that's what we'll be focusing on today. The top three things that all successful federal contractors do, regardless of their size, whether they're established or new, is really what we're going to talk about today. What the government evaluators do with your proposal, and then the three primary processes that help firms repeatedly hit that mark for award and win. While a good proposal process isn't enough in itself to win a bid, it definitely helps. A bad process can cause and does cause firms to lose, even when they do have the best technical solution, strongest staff, solid past performance, and on-target pricing. So it's important to understand that these processes can get you over the line. They're not enough to win in and of itself if you don't actually have the best solution. Next slide. So I often hear people say, oh, they know us, they told us to bid, no one else can do the work as well as we can. But you need to remember that the evaluation process is there to be fairly transparent and fair and open as much as possible. Evaluating bids is not why people take government jobs. In fact, it's usually seen as extra duty and definitely not their favorite activity. So you really need to justify or protest proof their choice for them. You need to make sure that your proposal is very easy to read and the selection is very simple for them to make. And the proof or evidence that you're the best offer is very easy to find. Next slide. If you haven't heard or seen this before, you probably haven't been in federal contracting very long. But I think that the question is, why is being compliant, competitive, and compelling so critical? If your bid's not compliant, it's going to be tossed out before they even read it. If it's not competitive, they're not going to give it any serious consideration. And if it's not compelling, it's not going to give them that best easy to defend award. And you're not going to get the award. While this is not rocket science, it definitely takes some strategy and planning to achieve compliant, competitive, and compelling bids regularly. Your processes should help you achieve at least one or more of these, or that process is likely a waste of your time. Next slide. Everyone hates wasting time, especially when most people working on proposals, especially at smaller firms, have a day job, their normal job that they're doing in addition to the proposal. Your processes should make your bids more compliant, competitive, and compelling, and efficiently use your staff's time. But you'd be surprised how many senior staff at many organizations try to bid too much, start writing immediately, and eliminate any time for revision. There are a variety of ways to incorporate these 3 basic processes into your proposal process. So let's dig into the process options for each of these. Next slide. Don't bid everything. I hear very often, and it makes me cringe every time, well, you can't win if you don't bid. And that's true. You can also embarrass yourself very badly and leave a bad taste with the client if you bid something that is not reflective of what they actually want and doesn't show your knowledge of the client. So the very first thing is, if you haven't talked to the client and prepared for an opportunity, someone else has. Keep that in mind. Making up that advantage, overcoming that advantage the competitor has, is extremely difficult. So you want to set your clear bid criteria based on what you can win. Take some time to analyze what bids your firm has won and lost. Think about what the commonalities are between those that win and what differentiates those from those that you've lost. Use that information to define some bid criteria for your firm. A lot of times that could be the size. It's going to be really hard to win something that doubles the size of your company. It may be that you're known to the client. It may be you've got 3 really amazing past performances that directly align. I've seen things running the gamut. A number of times you've actually talked to people who are likely to be on the evaluation committee, to the RFP clearly shows that you've influenced the solicitation in an ethical manner. But whatever those criteria are, write them down, circulate them to your team so they actually realize what opportunities they should be going for. You can use these bid criteria in formal gate review meetings, weekly or biweekly pipeline meetings, or just by email. When a bid comes out and you're like, hey, here's this bid, we want to go for it, here's how it meets the 3 criteria. It doesn't have to be cumbersome, it just needs to actually happen. Once people are invested in a bid, it's a lot harder to kill it, especially if they think it's a winner, but it doesn't meet your standard criteria and you know it's not going to win. Don't bid blind. Work your pipeline. Talk to the target client and their stakeholders. So the end users, others who've worked on teams with the client. Make sure you create a circle of information. Invest in getting intel early. You should know at a minimum the target value or level of effort, who the competition is, why the client needs this, what constraints the client's facing. Are they worried about time? Are they worried about congressional testimony? Are they worried about stakeholders calling their congressman? What are they worried about? Are they worried about just getting it done on time and not embarrassing them? And what kind of staffing preferences they have. Do they love having a PhD as the project director? Do they love having former stakeholders on the team? Do they look for certain certifications? You should know that. Worst case, if you haven't worked the opportunity, you should probably think about teaming or hiring to regain that lost advantage of knowledge of the client. You could also decide not to bid it and flag the recompete or follow-on so that you can start working it early on the next iteration. There's a saying, don't fire till you see the whites of their eyes. And that's really what this means. You have limited ammunition. You have limited time, limited money, limited passion that your people are bringing to their work. So use them wisely. If you want to invest in more intel, there's tons of services out there ranging the gamut. Just a short set, Bloomberg, GovTribe, GovWin, different industry associations, friends of the agency. They can all get you a little bit more inside scoop, especially if you're not already deep at the agency. Next slide. Planning before you write is the easiest way to be compliant. There's a lot of different ways people do this. Some people swear by a complex compliance matrix. There's software that can do a first cut and take the giant PDF you get from the government and turn it into a 22-page Excel file. But you can also do something simpler, like an annotated outline, a simple outline based on the requirements, and then copy and paste whatever the requirements are from section C and the evaluation criteria from M into the actual Word document. A lot of authors find this very easy. A lot of authors proposal writers take the compliance matrix and just copy and paste their section requirements into their Word document anyway. You can also do a section by section storyboard, noting clearly the requirements that are noted in the RFP. And then keep referring back to this root document, your compliance document. Update it anytime there's a modification. Then you really want to discuss and finalize your solution and staffing before you start writing. You want to spend a day or two hashing it out if there's not a clear solution and staffing strategy when the solicitation's already out. Take the time to figure it out. Otherwise, you're going to be doing tons of rework, and it'll introduce chaos into your written proposal, and it will drive everyone crazy, and you'll be crazy enough. There's different ways to come up with your solution. Some people have set solutions they use and just tailor to each solicitation. Sometimes you want to do an outcome-based log frame. You could look at a workflow. You could look at as is to be scenario. You could do a work breakout structure, a WBS work plan. You could look at milestones and schedule. Any framework is fine to use, but you need to know what are you going to offer and who's going to help you implement it. If you don't know what you're selling and why the client should buy it, you're not going to win. So figure that out. Then you really want to dig into differentiators and benefits. So there's different ways that you come up with this. These are the key elements of a win theme. You could just do a simple why us table. What are we offering? Why do they care? You could do a complex competitive matrix, list all the competitors, all the requirements, all of the hot buttons or other things the client cares about, and figure out where you actually are overachieving, where your strengths lie, where your competitors' weaknesses are. Highlight those. Or you could just do a list of the hot buttons and evaluation criteria and brainstorm around it. But take some time to figure it out before you start writing. Figure out where you want to highlight those things within the outline that you created, whether it's a compliance matrix or a Word outline. Then, and this people usually, except for some of the more advanced bidders, they typically don't think about the graphics and visuals until the end. And that's a big mistake. A lot of studies have shown that people perceive things and understand things much more easily if it's shown graphically or visually. So think about what your key points are for each section of your outline, and figure out how you might be able to reinforce or show that concept with a graphic or a visual. These are things that people can copy and paste right into their evaluator worksheets. It'll give them the proof that you're the best competitor, the best offer on the table. Graphics take time, so if you don't have your solution set and you don't know what graphics and visuals can reinforce that, it's going to be really hard to come up with something that is simple and easy to understand at the very last minute. So these are really good to do up front. You also save space for them because they save you writing time. Next slide. Reviews. If you remember Comp 101 from high school, outline, write, revise, edit. It seems really simple. I am continually shocked at how many people try to eliminate reviews so they have more time to write. The truth is that you should always have reviews, at least 2 or 3, even on a 2-week turnaround. Some of those reviews, very simple author reviews. Just pass the draft back and forth to get comments. Make sure all the sections are staying in sync that way. Share ideas on the fly. Then you can have some more formal reviews. Often these are color or gate reviews where you add additional perspectives from color reviewers who aren't deeply involved in the bid. This is critical because if you think about it, those evaluators on the government side, they're coming from a lot of different perspectives. There might be the program officer. There's probably somebody trained in contracts. There's probably somebody they grabbed who was sitting down the hall and seemed like they weren't busy. They're not all going to have the same in-depth understanding that the team working on the bid has had. They're not going to recall, oh yeah, that phrase actually means this, because they haven't been involved in your discussions. So having those outside fresh perspectives is critical. You should probably have somebody who knows the client well, somebody who knows the topic well, and somebody who knows the stakeholders as well. So in my mind, those are usually the three things that you look for in gate reviewers. Oftentimes you'll have somebody who also knows the competition very well, and that can be valid as well. You don't want to have more than 3 or 4 reviewers if you can help it, because it gets really hard to do the recovery, the integration of their changes. Every single review that you have should look for compliance. This is the first thing, and usually the first review is mostly about compliance, because even with a strong outline and strong compliance matrix, authors are going to write what authors want to write, and they'll forget 1 or 2 small things. So compliance, always the first thing to look for. Then you want to make sure your bid's competitive. Is there better proof that we can offer to our differentiators? Did we consider this other approach? And if we did and decided not to use it, can we explain why? Because the evaluators might have that question too. And then you want to make sure it's compelling. So usually later in the process, after it's compliant, after it's good, you're really looking for, can we quantify the savings in money or time? Are we really telling them why to choose us? The client uses these terms. They're not using the standard life cycle PMO terminology. We need to make sure we're speaking their language. Those are the kind of things you really want to look for at each level of review. Reviews can be done really simply, either tossing drafts back and forth, having people read it, have a conference call just to digest their main points. Some firms do a day-long meeting where they lock people in a room, make them read the RFP and the bid and discuss it all in one day. Sometimes you just say, hey, I've posted my draft. Can you take a look at it in the next day and just redline your changes? Any of those work. The key point is to make sure that you are doing reviews and that you're looking for the right things during your review, and that you leave at least 3 days after the last review for people to integrate the comments and do a proofread, copy edit, and produce the bid. Next slide. Beyond those basics, those were the 3 big processes that you really need to have in place in one way or another to consistently win government awards. Going beyond those basics, I recommend these. Shipley has a lot of examples and templates. The competitor bidder matrix that they use in their training is the simplest way I've ever seen to come up with real differentiators that'll resonate with the client. It also is a good way to evaluate, do we have a shot at winning at all? Or who do we need to partner with to be able to get better? They also have a really nice way to approach executive summaries. So there's a lot there to mine. They have online training. It's nice. Stay agile. One of the new things percolating in the proposal business is trying to use project management methodologies for proposals. I've always said proposal management is project management on a really short deadline. Using Agile is one way to keep doing rolling reviews, constant reviews, and stagger the timing. I love it. When I was first hearing people talk about it in terms of the Agile framework, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the secret sauce I've been using forever. but it's a really good way to do it if you can integrate it into your process. Use technology, whether it's a consistent folder structure, use of SharePoint, Google Docs, GovWin, Privia, whatever it is. Get your team familiar with a standard structure, standard version control guidelines, standard schedule, and communications protocol so that they don't have to worry about all that logistical crap during the bid. They want to focus on creating something compliant, competitive, and compelling. Keep the logistics consistent and simple. And then be ready. That doesn't just mean be ready before the RFP comes out through doing some really good pipeline building, opportunity qualification and capture, which is nice, but not always possible. But it does mean be ready for something to come up at the last minute. Because 9 out of 10 times, the wheels are going to come off the last week of the bid. It could be your main writer gets sick. It could be the Q&A comes back and oh my gosh, it's wacky. Changes all the requirements. It could be the evaluation criteria get tweaked during a mod. So stay ready, don't procrastinate. If you're really lucky that 1 out of 10 times nothing goes wrong at the end, it'll be a smooth process. And if it is a more typical bid, you'll still have the resources to throw at it and be able to pull off a win anyway. Next slide. So in summary, to win, you need to be compliant, competitive, and compelling. You can use 3 simple proposal processes to get you there consistently. There are a myriad of ways to tailor these 3 basic processes to fit your firm's culture and needs. We've only touched on a few, but figure out which process, which approach to the process fits for your firm, or ask for help. That's all from me today.
That was a lot of great information, Christy, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you for everybody who joined us. If you have any questions, please contact her directly with the information you see on your screen. Next week at 12, we are covering OTAs, It Is Good As They Say It Is, and at 12:30, we are covering SBA 8A certification. Thank you for joining us today.